1961, she receives the Pulitzer for fiction. Not amazing after reading the book why she would have received that. So 1960-61, she's accompanied by Truman Capote to Holcomb, Kansas. She accompanies him as a research assistant. To assist him with research, what he kind of thought would be just an article or a handful of articles on the small town's response to the murder of a farmer and his family. What ended up happening is it just expanded into one of his best-selling novels, In Cold Blood. And she was quite active within that research process. Also in 1961, she is approached by Alan Palooka, who is a producer-director and is very interested in producing a movie version of her book. And she trusts him to do this. And again, we don't know why she trusted him to do this because we don't have anything written down about it. There's been a lot of speculation. Truman had said, well, she found him adorable. But yet, in other stuff and in other comments, she would have never found a married man attractive. But again, who knows? Everything is speculation at this point. So at the same time that she meets Alan, she meets Gregory Peck. Now, who the hell doesn't like Gregory Peck, for God's sake? I'm in love with Gregory Peck. Tall, handsome, dashing. You know, he is the... well, anyways. So, quite an interesting conversation. And so anyways, they put this whole thing together. But what was very mandatory for her is that she only wanted Gregory Peck to play Atticus Finch. If it was going to be somebody else, forget about it. And so she sat through every reel of that film and, you know, tweaked and tweaked. Now, why would we think that she wouldn't have sat through that film and tweaked when she had spent 7 years tweaking and tweaking? You know, people were shocked to see her on set at 6 a.m. in the morning till 11:30 at night, following this film along. So, at the same time this is going on, she becomes friends with some, you know, with Gregory Peck's wife, and of course their grandchild is named after her. And you know, she ends up meeting Stephen Peck. It's just she gains a whole new group of friends, Hollywood friends. So, what happens in 1962? Film is released. And what does it do? It wins the Academy Award for Best Screenplay Adaptation. And what does Gregory Peck win that year? Academy Award for Best Leading Man. Oh my golly. And this woman is still so fantastically humble through this whole process. I mean, if my book had received first the Pulitzer, that's it. I'd be done. I'd have the biggest head in the world. I'd need people to hold up each side. And then there's 2 Academy Awards. So anyways, so at the same time this is going on in 1962, she becomes very close friends with Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. And would later meet through her progression, Lady Bird Johnson. who she found elegant and simple. She found Jackie to be elegant and complicated. And as we know, we could see that complication later on in each of those lives. The simplicity of Lady Bird and the complexity of Jackie or eventually becoming Jackie Onassis. So a couple of years pass. She's very miffed by the assassination of Jack Kennedy, and like most people were, very, very shocked by it. And so eventually LBJ appoints her to the National Council on the Arts as a permanent member. There's only been 2 permanent members in the history of the National Council on the Arts, and her being one. The other one would be the late, great John O'Hara. So, very interestingly, approximately 1966, 1967, the Richmond, Virginia School Board decides to not endorse her book as a to-read book. And there's little pockets all throughout the country. School in district in Portland, Oregon, funny enough, a bunch of districts in Texas, Florida came into play, and there was issues with the book. But what's interesting about Richmond is Richmond sued. And their reasoning for suing was it was immoral literature. So what would that do to a writer that would bring now the writer into the political framework? The writer previously was not involved in the political framework. She was just introduced to people within politics. I would say it didn't affect her own personal life. This has now affected her. So she begins to write all of these letters all throughout the country, all to these different boards and school boards and schoolhouses throughout the country, but specifically to Virginia. And then by the end of '66, because this all happened approximately January, February of '66. By the end of '66, her book was on the banned list in the state of Virginia, in the state of Florida, and in the state of Texas. But as we know, long term, that caused the book to come into even more fame. Because what do Americans do when things are banned? We do them. Not so shocking. Oh, it would be great if you could find that.
It's in here, and it's her response.
So her book ends up on the banned list in Richmond at the Richmond School Board, and of course she doesn't sue, she doesn't get herself involved in it, but J.B. Lippincott presents the suit.
Yeah, it starts here and finishes on the next page.
Oh, okay. Oh God, I wish I had this. Recently, I've received echoes down this way of the Hanover County School Board's activities, and what I've heard makes me wonder if any of its members can read. Surely it's plain to the simplest intelligence that To Kill a Mockingbird spells out in words of seldom more than 2 syllables a code of honor and conduct. Christian in its ethic that is the heritage of all Southerners. To hear that the novel is immoral has made me count the years between now and 1984, for I have yet to come across a better example of doublethink. I feel, however, that the problem is one of illiteracy, not Marxism. Therefore, I enclose a small contribution to the Beetlebum Fund that I hope will be used to enroll the Hanover County School Board in any first grade of its choice. That's comical. What is the Beetle Bumble Fund? Anybody know? No? So the gentleman who ran the Richmond newspaper put this fund together to fund individuals to help pay fines and to defend them if other writers got themselves on this banned list, which is fantastic. Say Peter wrote something just so scathing and awful that we couldn't have read it in 2016. He could go to them and say, I really need a little help to get this book on. And then the gentleman has it right here, James Kilpatrick, who put this together. But this fund has helped other writers get out of the hole of denial, not being able to push. J.D. Salinger didn't use it, but called upon the organization to help him defend. He paid for it. He paid for his defense, but to have him defend Catcher in the Rye, when Catcher in the Rye in the 1980s became a taboo book. How insane is that? Everybody familiar with J.D. Salinger? Okay. So, 1968 ends the Richmond Book Band. Doesn't end the Florida Book Band, and doesn't end the Texas Book Band. You could not read her book if you're a high school student in Texas or Florida. But they were abound in the state of Virginia. So anyways, so what do we do? We move up to 1983, and she presents an essay called Romance and High Adventure at the Alabama History and Heritage Festival in Alabama. That's 1983. I ended in 1968. This is now 1983. What occurred during those lost years? What occurred during those lost years was just the fact that she enjoyed being around all of the friends that she had committed to and that had committed to her for all of those years. And they say that she had written several things, several essays, several short stories. But again, we haven't seen that. So, and she spent some time researching true crime. And I don't know what the intent was with that. I don't know if she was going to produce a book or produce a movie or wanted to get back into that jive that she had with Truman Capote when she was researching In Cold Blood. We really don't know. If Peter knows, it would be great if you had a little bit of information on that. What happens? We're going to fast forward to 2005, just a few years ago, back when we were just young children running around. Her publisher, Lippincott, gives her an award for one of the best novels that ever came out of that particular press house. And that gave her an income for life. And Veronica Peck, who is the wife of the late Gregory Peck, and she stayed together, they're very close, and there's lots of going back and forth from Monroeville to Los Angeles. and kind of prompting her to do more, get out there. So in 2005, she accepts the Los Angeles Public Library Literary Award. Now, this is the very first time outside of that last experience in 1967 that she stood in front of the press. Truman Capote died in, was it 83 or 84? 84. That was that was an enormous funeral. And it was, maybe you can consider that her outing, but this is really it right here. She was there to respect her friend. So this same year, she starts to attend luncheons for her students, for students of her alma mater. Well, not really alma mater because she didn't graduate. Her an attendee. She decides, well, you know what, let's do an essay course. Maybe she's getting out of her skin. I don't know what drew her to get into teaching. So she luncheons with these students, and they come up with essays, and they work off of each other. And this continued on until the year she passed. And then eventually she accepted an honorary degree from the University of Alabama, an honorary degree from Notre Dame, and an honorary degree from Columbia University. So, this is now 2007. George Walker Bush is now President of the United States. And Harper Lee is presented with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And as you know, it's the highest civilian honor that you can ever receive. And the quote is, "An especially meritorious contribution to the security or the nation's interest of the United States, world peace, culture, and other significant public or private endeavors." And that put her over the top in respectability. And remember, we're talking about a woman who only, at this point in time, written one novel. One. There was a gentleman who wrote 153 novels, more than 26,000 essays in his lifetime, and never received an award like this. Thankfully, he was dead by that point in time, or I'm sure he would have had a field day. So, anyways, so where do we go with this? So, of course, now that she's honored by the U.S., she's honored by Monroe County, which is where she was born and raised, and would eventually die. And then the state of Alabama awards her their highest honor. So, what are the issues? I'm going to leave and I'm going to leave it at this, because we're going to step into Go Set a Watchman at this point. But we're at a point, remember, 1968, and we didn't hear from her until 2005. So how many years is that? I'm not a mathematician. I'm a historian.
I'm not a
Mathematician in the room?
30-something years.
Huh?
30-something years.
Hell, let's go with that. 30-something years.
You didn't give an exact 2000.
What year did Truman die?
84.
84. And nothing between 84 and 2007?
Hmm?
Nothing between
No, I mean, outside of that, the honor.
Funeral,
Attending the funeral.
and then there was some award, wasn't there, in between there that, okay.
So I'm going to invite Peter back up, and I'd love his point of view on the lawsuit because it's a fascinating thing. It really is.
Can I say just a couple
Yeah.
of things on the way, just little notes? In scrolling around on the internet, it speaks to what Peter's already said and what Ian was talking about. The Browns, who were her original benefactors, kept letters that she exchanged with them, and I watched a video. You can get it on Netflix. There's a couple of different discs that interview people who knew her, as well as her sister and neighbors, that type of thing, that give insight into her. And she wanted to write, and they actually have a picture of the letter on the video that the Browns still have, that she had decided that she wanted to write a book on race, a book on Victorian era, which was her classic English that she loved so much, historic Victorian English, Monroeville itself, India circa 1910, something about the United Nations, and something that would be just pure entertainment. Those were her categories that she wanted to write novels in, and she said to the Browns, can you support me for the next 15 years, because I think that's what it's going to take. So she did have plans for other writing, and when later on in the disc, when her sister Alice is interviewed and asked, well, did she continue writing during this time frame where nobody heard from her, saw her, anything? And Alice said, yes, she did write, but never really shared it, and she took up painting and became a fairly good painter. But there again, nobody's ever seen her paintings, so very reclusive again, but that was just a little insight on what was going on during that quiet time. Sorry to hold you up here.
Tijan, this dream's where you belong. Your golden journey now has just begun with your mother's arms.